offseason? Like, were you able to reset in this time period?
Yeah, off-season's always different each year because you learn something from the year before. You want to try something new. Obviously, playing the most I played this last season, had to take that into account with kind of my team, the team here. About, I'm one of those guys that's wired as like, the more you do, the better. Like moderation's for cowards. So I always like to get back quick, and there's workhorse, plow horse mentality that sometimes isn't the best thing. So appreciate the staff here who's so forward thinking and creating a great offseason plan. And then in that mix too, football aside, my wife and I took kind of a belated honeymoon. This season was right after we got married, so we went over to Europe and had like 17, 18 days over there and did it the right way. So it was really cool.
Take some convincing to not go full bore right away this summer?
Yeah, 100%. That's just, I feel like that's the way that we're wired. There's not a lot of things you can control in life, but you can control your work ethic. And when the game's all said and done, and like if there's Super Bowl champion next to my name, that'd be incredible. The Walter Payton things are super humbling. Maybe I'll catch a Pro Bowl or an All-Pro one year in my life, but I think the biggest accomplishment would be like if you look back and ask my teammates, hey, who's one of the hardest workers you ever had on your team? I'd want my name to come up in that mix. So then for them to be like, oh, yeah, well, hey, you have to rest for the next X amount of weeks and no lifting, no this or whatever. It's hard to get engraved in your DNA, but it's what's best for us or myself. I feel great. I always lose a little bit of weight in the off season because you guys know living here, you kind of put on some extra pounds in the winter to keep the cold off of you or something. And I'm an emotional eater too, so when the season's going this way or whatever, I gotta get my sweets in me or something. And I always lose some weight, so I'm feeling pretty good. We had a high day today, what our performance staff would call, and it was Rocky Mountain high day. Like it was good for our first high day back, and yeah, felt good.
Along those lines, I think Kevin said at one point, maybe at the owners' meetings, that they actually would like to play you a few less snaps.
Mm-hmm.
Were you particularly worn down at the end of the year? Is that just kind of a less is more situation, or do you think you even need to do that?
I don't think it's made out of necessity. I mean, when the season finished last year, knock on wood, I came out healthy, and that's actually not been the case for a lot of my seasons of a little cleanup surgery here and here and there. I think when I look back at the film, just through the offseason, I'll pick up a game and want to go watch how I played and stuff. And one thing that would come up is I'd be a little insecure about like, yeah, hey, when you're on play 14 of a drive or my 57th snap in a game, sometimes I'm like, man, if I was fresher, could I have made that one? Or could I put my foot in the ground and turn and run a little bit more? The competitor in me, even some of those long plays, I didn't look to the sideline. I wanted to stay out there and be with my brothers and be out there. So that's something that I'll definitely let them control in our defensive line room as well. I know we've signed a lot of great individuals to come in and I think help with our depth and our rotation and stuff like that. The competitor in me, no, I want to be 100% of every snap. And to answer your direct question, I didn't feel specifically worn down or that my gas tank was empty. But I still feel like I have a lot of years left to play at a high level in this league. And so if saving a few here extends a year on later down the road, maybe I'll get on the hitman plan.
What was it like to watch this offseason unfold? It's kind of unique to have this many moves happen with the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's I don't know. I'm pretty optimistic about it all. There's a lot of emotions that go into play because you have great relationships with people. And so when guys leave in free agency, that's always one of the hardest things about the game. I think I learned more each year how to go about that. My rookie year, I was like super tight with guys and thought that we would be best friends forever. And then they're gone and you like never see them. And it's each year I've kind of dealt with the business side of it differently. And so I have a mature understanding of how this business works now, and an optimism about what we're building here and what these guys have been doing for the last 2 years. And it's pretty clear the foundation's been laid, and a lot of the pieces have been moved now to really show the thumbprint that this staff here on the second and third floor want to have for the Minnesota Vikings, and I believe in them wholeheartedly. So I'm really excited, and I think that we also have some really cool things coming up in just under 2 weeks here or whatever, to just over 2 weeks, or next week, whenever the draft. Is it next week already? Okay, next week. So we'll add a whole new edition of teammates, and it's funny, some of us guys who've been around joke, feels like we're the free agents when we come back, and there's so many new faces. We got to introduce ourselves to so many people.
When you talk about the Hitman plan, how cool is it to have Harry come back and just to see his dedication to stay here?
It's incredible. I mean, I think he's had the career that every player who's ever touched a football has dreamed to have, and to be playing at high level at the age he is incredible. You know, top in the position. We were doing something defensively as we're talking about what the identity might be of this defense this year. We talked about takeaways and turning the ball over, and we put up the league leaders, the active league leaders in forced fumbles and interceptions across the whole league. And then on our team, and you see like, oh, this guy's got 2, and this guy's got 6 in his career. And then you got Harry, who's off the screen, and then we went to forced fumbles, and it's the same thing. And he's playing at such a high level. And then again, you know, I feel like every player, once you get involved in an organization, it's your dream to stay there for as long as you can. And if it's just your whole career, I mean, that's the dream. So really happy that Harry's back from a personal level and for the future of what this organization is going to try to accomplish this season and moving forward. And yeah, I mean, he's a role model of mine.
Locker room wise, does it feel different without Kurt?
Probably a little too early to tell. I mean, we don't have our Chili's date set yet quite this offseason. That was, you know, he spearheaded a lot, which maybe the nutritionist staff is happy about. So if any of you guys got some meal plugs that if restaurants want to host us, we can try to figure something out. But yeah, you know, he has amazing characteristics, and again, you guys know who he is as a person and how a lot of us players felt about him as a man. But man, you already see some of the leadership just in 2 short days of some of the new guys who are here or the players who've been here a year or two. And even though, you know, you might be young in your career, the fact that you know things and you've been here and understand the culture of what we built, you are automatically a leader. And so, you know, there might not be one individual person that can pick up that entire burden, but 90 of us can. And I also have a great relationship with Sam, and you know that position, quarterback position, comes with the positional power of a leader. And so I haven't got to work out and be in the room with him yet, but just knowing who he is and having to battle his ass every year at USC, I know that he'll also move the needle on the picking up that leadership slack.
As you kind of reflect on your first year with Flo, what's the best thing he does? Like, what's his superpower?
Man, that's a loaded question because even without the cameras, I would tell you off record I mean, he has so many amazing qualities that I didn't really know. Not that he had, I didn't really have any preconceived notions of any of the coaches I've been in with my life. But when he came, he was like, oh, new DC, I got to be on my P's and Q's. How's he operate? Is he strict? Is he this? Came from New England. I've heard how things were there. And he, you know, exceeded every expectation I had as a defensive coordinator. And I'd say one of the things he does best is, I don't want to say hiding, but yeah, maybe hiding our handicaps as a defense or finding ways to make weaknesses into strengths. And, you know, my singular focus is on winning and winning Super Bowls. And so I think, yeah, what he does in terms of connecting with players, and we have Fellowship Thursdays where the defense goes out and we do these things, and his coined phrase is you can't have unique results without unique relationships, and that's all great and dandy. But about the way he calls a football game and the way that he can make a defense and the scheme that even being here, today was our first day of an install, and to show what he had from last year to this year in one day is like, oh my gosh, like we're going to be really rolling. So I appreciate the most about how he's a master of defensive scheme. He can handicap our weaknesses and really lean into our strengths to make us win football games.
How much of a foundation does it feel like is there on defense when you talk about the installs and feeling like you already have a grip on what you're doing?
Yeah, quite a bit, at least on day one install. You normally put in the most normal things that you see. But, you know, I think our disguise is one of the best things we do, and our versatility. And, you know, in my room specifically, you can see with some of the guys that we brought in, they're kind of tweeners in the sense that do they play this or do they play this? Well, we don't really want to tell you. You'll find out week 1 what they're going to play because we have a lot of different guys that we brought in that can do a lot of things. And you look at like a Josh Metellus role. You know, we brought in some people with that type of versatility that can have your hand in the ground, that can stand up, that can move to middle, that can move to outside, and to have all those different puzzle pieces or chess pieces to let, I know they normally say let Kwesi cook, but to let Flo cook, should be really exciting.
Kevin talked a few weeks ago about like keeping you guys, communicating with you guys through all the change that has been over the last few months? Like, how much communication have you had with him or the staff or about decisions made?
I don't think I'm high enough in the totem pole to be in the decision-making processes, but I think more towards the end of the season when, I was around working out in like February and just in the hallway conversations about like, hey, did you think that these players could do this? Or do you think that if we're looking, I guess, this wasn't a direct quote, but like, hey, do you think we need a really, really big D lineman that could be stout? Or do you think we need a smaller, fast D lineman that could do this, that, and whatever? And so we had organic conversations about, how I would see the defense and things like that. And then I think we had one or two Zoom calls through the offseason with a handful or 4 or 5 of us kind of older leader guys on the team with Kevin. But yeah, that's probably a little too much above my pay grade. I know who we're drafting though, but I don't want to tell you guys.
How do you, just as a veteran, and being circulating amongst the veterans, how do you think this quarterback transition, however it does play out, will sort of settle in with the veteran guys who, obviously you guys want to win. No one knows how long their careers are going to go for, and some historically quarterback transitions can take a little bit of time to get rolling. And I'm just curious, like, in your mind, or as you circulated amongst other veterans, like, how does the fact that you guys are going from Kirk to something else settle in with people who probably want to win right away?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I appreciate the way that you asked it. I know defensively, again, we're fully a team, but I know defensively sometimes we like to segment like, hey, we don't really worry about what they're doing over there. During the season last year with some of the turnovers and stuff, like, let's just be the best version of ourselves and do it this way. So there's that aspect to it. Then we get in the locker room and it's more fellowship and brothership of a whole team. And yeah, like, I'm getting old. I probably, in year 7, probably have less years in front of me than behind me. And so, like, yeah, my window to win a Super Bowl is narrowing. And I'm extremely optimistic about the moves they made. Like I said, I've had to compete against Sam for years when I was at Stanford. And then to see his career, I think that this is probably the most complete roster that he's been on in his career. And so the sky is the limit for him. We're in the same draft class, and I feel like I'm about to just catch my stride as the best football player that I've been, the best version of myself. I think he would feel the same way about himself. I look at some of the history of the NFL about how quarterback transitions have gone, but then I look at some other examples of a Baker Mayfield. And I don't know, how the whole thing is going to come to a conclusion, but I'm very confident that we are going to win a lot of football games with Sam as the captain of the ship. And what other pieces come into play down the road, we'll address that when we get there. But the veterans that I feel like are like, yeah, we're gonna roll with this, and we have a lot of confidence in the moves that have been made. And also, Aaron Jones is a dog.
Flo was talking about how this is fun for him. This is where he sees what puzzle pieces he has, and like you said, he's already changing it up. But sometimes he does ask the offense, like, "Is this hard for you? How can I make it harder?" To have a defensive coordinator that, first of all, has fun still doing it. It's kind of like a kid. Takes everyone's advice. How has that been?
It's cool. I mean, I don't know if I've always been in organizations or with the defensive coordinators that took as much input as him. And I think that's a strength. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm kind of blown away that he wasn't poached somewhere to be a head football coach. I mean, that was one of my biggest fears this offseason was like, well, shoot, if Flo's going to be gone, what does that mean for my role, and what does that look like for me? And I had a career year in his system, and I hope to even surpass that personally. And we played great defense, and the joy and the happiness that you mentioned, that's lost a lot. And I've been on, I was actually fortunate enough to be a part of the #1 defense in the NFL in 21, I think, in Buffalo. And I wouldn't say that there's that much joy that Flo brings to the game. And there's a competitive balance to both because winning is the #1 thing. But it's super early of OTAs. We're long ways away from putting pads on and competing. But this is where you lay that first foundation of what are some of the non-intangible things that are going to build the identity of this defense. And, Flores kind of suggested that physicality and joy would be 2 of the key words that he'd like to see in a defense that we build. and I would co-sign that as well. So I definitely appreciate his willingness to take an input and his appreciation for the joy of the game. We play a children's game, and we make a lot of money doing it.